Hello.
Chilling of the evening. Though you know my love, that I must go, following the winds that blow inside me. I've nowhere left to run or hide, except if you will come and run beside me. And even if you do, there'll be a lot for us to do to keep believing. Take me from the chilling of the evening. Now my time has come, down many streets, I'm coming from a night decaying. The song that itself sings is all alone, I cannot even hear it playing. And now to leave before I understand just what it is, I know I'm leaving. Take me from the chilling of the evening, of the evening. Thank you. You know, it's kind of funny for me because I'm looking out here and I'm I can't, you know how sometimes when you're doing something and then you go off to do something else and you come back to do the first thing again and it's like no time has happened in between, you know. And I remember a couple of times, hanging out a couple of times and things sort of like this, maybe a little bigger, you know, back about 30 years ago, and I was looking out there and it was raining and people were having fun anyway. And didn't matter. As a matter of fact, I remember back in those days because it was funny being here tonight. I mean, this afternoon and walking around, and it's not just the sights, but it's the smells and it's the taste, you know, and all the stuff. Because I remember back years ago, I was over in Denmark one time back around 1965, and somebody gave me some presents to bring back to some friends at home. And I remember I had to fly to London. I got on an airplane, and it was what we used to call that like an illegal substance or something. And I remember getting on the plane, and the plane took off. And I suddenly realized that, I started getting like, they call it paranoia today, but back in those days, we used to call it like inspiration. And I was getting inspired because I know a lot of people today, especially a lot of young people, you may not understand, but there were times when people were so gifted. People had powers and abilities beyond the comprehension that you could not understand. I'm not just talking about us guys. I'm talking about, I knew a guy one time who would stand on the airport runways and he would smell airplanes as they was coming in for landing. I'm talking about authorities with powers and abilities that would boggle the mind today. And he would stand there and smell the planes as they was coming in. I know you think I'm making this up. And he would radio into the guys at the gate. He would say something like, "There's a man in seat 36C carrying some illegal substance." And they'd pick the poor sucker up at the gate. And I know you're saying, what is he talking about? I know what I'm talking about. Because one time I was sitting on an airplane in seat 36C. And like I said, I had some illegal substance on my person, is what we used to say. I didn't mean to have it, but I didn't know what to do with it. And there I was, and I knew I couldn't get rid of it at that point, and I was sitting in a no-smoking seat. I didn't know what to do, so I ate it. Yeah, I did, I ate it. And there I was. I was sitting in seat 36C, D, E, and F. I was floating around the plane. I was feeling pretty good. And then I started having, like I said before, some of this inspiration. Actually, it's going beyond inspiration. It was going over into revelation. Because I was looking out the window of my plane, and I could see the man standing on the runway smelling my plane. And I was 1,000 miles away from America at the time, but I could see him as plain as day. And so, like I said, in the final desperate fit of inspiration, not knowing what else to do, I just sat there. And after a while, I remember the plane landed, and a time tunnel come to meet me. It was attached to the building, and it came out and attached itself on the plane, and people were disappearing into the time tunnel. And I thought to myself, not me. I'm not going. Until I was personally escorted into the time tunnel by a hand-picked crew. And I remember I was moving through the time tunnel, and all of a sudden, standing at the other end, standing right in front of me, was the same guy. The man I had seen in my revelation, smelling my plane, standing on the runway, was now standing right in front of me. And he had a look in his eye that said, "I know you ate it." And I had a look in my eye, too, that said, "Yep." Coming in from London from over the pole, flying in a big airliner, chicken flying everywhere around the plane. Could we ever feel much finer? Coming into Los Angeles, bringing in a couple of keys. Don't touch my bags if you please, Mr. Customs Man. There's a man with his ticket to Mexico. No, it couldn't look much stranger. Walking in the wall with his things and all. Smiling, said it was the Lone Ranger. Coming into Los Angeles, bringing in a couple of keys. Don't touch my bags if you please, Mr. Customs Man. So I've been walking on the moving floor, tripping on the escalator. I remember some of that. I remember some of the old tunes. Maybe later. I thought, dude, I learned when I was a little kid growing up. I grew up, with a lot of my father's friends were hanging around. And I learned so much stuff from. I used to go up to all of them all the time and say, "Man, show me how to do that stuff." There was a song I learned from my dad's best friend, a guy named Cisco Houston. He used to sing some of the old songs, and this is one of them here, down from New Orleans, called the St. James Infirmery. It goes something like this. It was down in old Joe's barroom on the corner by the square. The drinks were served as usual, and the usual crowd was there. Now on my left stood Big Joe McKennedy. His eyes were bloodshot red, and as he looked at the gang around him, these were the very words he said. I went down to the St. James Infirmary. I saw my baby there, stretched out on a long white table, so young, so cold and fair. 17 coal black horses hitched to a rubber-tied hack. 7 girls going to the graveyard, and only 6 of them are coming back. Let her go, God bless her, wherever she may be. She may search this wide world over and never find another man like me. Now when I die, please bury me in my high-top Stetson hat. Put a $20 gold piece on my watch chain so the Lord will know I died standing pat. I want 6 crap shooters for my pallbearers, and a chorus girl to sing me a song. Place a jazz band on my hearse wagon, just to raise some hell as we roll along. Now that I've told you my story, I'll take another shot of booze. And if anyone here should ask you, I got the gambler's blues. Got the keys to the highway. Lord, I'm booked and I'm bound to go. Gonna leave here running, you know walking's just too slow. Getting up early in the morning. You know I'm gonna put on my walking shoes. When the leather hits the highway, Lord, I'm gonna lose my walking blues. I'm going back down south of the border, where I am better known. All you've done, pretty woman, drove a good man from his home. I got the keys to the highway. Lord, I'm booked and I'm bound to go. Gonna leave here running, you know, walking's just too slow. Used to sit down, you know, and listen to the old blues guys like Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, and I'd say, man, show me how you do that stuff. And eventually, you know, started writing my own songs when I was fairly young. I remember I wrote this back around 1965 or so. Here's an old one. Sounds like you might have heard this before. I know I have. That's because this song's called Alice's Restaurant. It's about Alice and the restaurant. But Alice's Restaurant was never the name of a restaurant. That was always just the name of this song. And I guess that's why I still call this song Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Walk right in, it's a roundabout, just a half a mile from the railroad track. And you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Well, it all started a long time ago. It was about 35 years ago on Thanksgiving. 35 Thanksgivings ago that my friend and I decided to go up and visit Alice at the restaurant. But Alice didn't used to live in a restaurant. She used to live in the church nearby the restaurant, in the bell tower, with her husband Ray and Facha the dog. And living in the bell tower like that, they used to have a lot of room downstairs where the pews used to be. And seeing as how they had all that room, they decided that they didn't have to take out their garbage for a long time. We got up there, found the place was filled with garbage, and we decided it'd be a friendly gesture for us to take the garbage down to the town dump. So we took the half a ton of garbage, put it in the back of a red VW microbus, took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, and headed on toward the town dump. We got there and there was a sign, a chain across the road saying, closed on Thanksgiving. We had never heard of a dump closed on Thanksgiving before. So with tears in our eyes, we drove off into the sunset, looking for another place to put the garbage. And we didn't find one till we come to a side road. And off of the side road there was a 15-foot cliff, and at the bottom of the cliff there was another pile of garbage. We decided that one big pile'd be better than two little ones. hang that one up, we decided to throw ours down. That's what we did. Drove back to the church, had a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat. Went to sleep and didn't get up until the next morning when we got a phone call from Officer Obie. He said, "Kid, we found your name on an envelope at the bottom of a half a ton of garbage. Just wanted to know if you had any information about it." And I said, "Yes, sir, Officer Obie. I cannot tell a lie. I put that envelope under that garbage." It was after talking to Obie for about 45 minutes on the telephone that we finally arrived at the truth of the matter. And Obie said we had to go down, pick up the garbage. We also had to go down and talk to him at the police officer station. Now, friends, there's only one of two things that Obie could have done at the police officer station. And of course, the first thing was he could have given us a medal for being so brave and honest over the telephone, which wasn't very likely, and we didn't expect it. The other possibility was that he could have bawled us out and told us never to be seen driving garbage around the vicinity again, which is what we expected. But when we got to the police officer station, there was the third possibility that we hadn't counted on. And we was both immediately arrested, handcuffed. And I said, "Obie, I don't think I can pick up the garbage with these handcuffs on." He said, "Shut up, kid. Get in the back of the patrol car." We sat in the back of the patrol car and drove to the, quote, "scene of the crime," unquote. Now, friends, I want to tell you about the town of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, where this was happening. They got 3 stop signs, 2 police officers, and 1 police car. But when we got to the scene of the crime, there was 5 police officers and 3 police cars, being the biggest crime of the last 50 years, and everybody wanted to get in the newspaper story about it, and they was using up all kinds of cop equipment they had hanging around the police officer station. They was taking plaster, tire track, footprints, dog-smelling prints, and they took 27 8x10 color glossy pictures with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against us. They took pictures of the approach, the getaway, the northwest corner, the southwest corner. That's not to mention the aerial photography. And it was after the ordeal we went back to the jail. Obie said he was going to put us in a cell. He said, "Kid, I'm going to put you in a cell. Give me a wallet and your belt." And I said, "Obie, I can understand you wanting my wallet, so I don't have any money to spend in the cell. But what do you want my belt for?" He said, "Kid, we don't want any hangings." I said, "Obie, did you think I was going to hang myself for littering?" Obie said he was making sure, and friends, Obie was. Because Obie took out the toilet seat so I couldn't hit myself over the head and drown. Took out the toilet paper so I couldn't bend the bars, roll the toilet paper out the window, slide down the roll, having to escape and get away. Obie was making sure, all right. And it was about 4 or 5 hours later that Alice, remember Alice? This is still the song about Alice. She come by, and with a few nasty words to Obie on the side, she bailed us out of jail. We went back to the church, had another Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat, went to sleep and didn't get up until the next morning when we all had to go to court. We walked in, sat down. Obie come in with the 27 8x10 color glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against us. He sat down. A man come in. He said, "All rise." And we stood up, and Obie stood up with the 27 8x10 color glossy pictures, and the judge walked in with a CNI dog. Sat down. We sat down. Obie looked at the CNI dog, and then at the 27 8x10 color glossy pictures, and looked at the CNI dog. And Obie began to cry. Because Obie come to the realization that this was a typical case of American blind justice. was no way the judge was gonna look at the 27 8x2. Well, it didn't matter, cause we was fined $25 each, and we had to pick up the garbage in the snow. Of course, that's not what I come to talk about this afternoon. I just thought I'd mention it. I know there's probably some people standing out here thinking this is one of these nostalgic ballads or something. Well, I hope so. But you never know the way the world is today. You know what I'm saying? They still got that building in New York City on Whitehall Street, and others like it all around America. And that's where you used to have to go in, get injected, inspected, detected, infected, neglected, and selected. And I remember I had to go in there one morning a long time ago for a physical examination. So I got good and drunk the night before, because I wanted to feel my best when I went in that morning. I mean, I wanted to feel, I wanted to look, I wanted to be like the all-American kid. When I went in that morning, I was hung down, I was brung down, I was hung up, I was all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly-looking things. I walked in, I sat down. They gave me a piece of paper, said, "Kid, see the psychiatrist, room 604. I went up there. I said, "Shrink, I want to kill. I mean, I want to kill. I want to see blood and gore and guts and veins in my teeth, eat dead, burnt bodies. I mean, kill, kill, kill." And I started jumping up and down, yelling, "Kill, kill." And he started jumping up and down with me. And we was both jumping up and down, yelling, "Kill, kill, kill, kill." Till the sergeant come over, pinned the medal on me, sent me down the hall, said, "You're our boy." I didn't feel real good about it, but I proceeded on down the hall, getting more injections, inspections, and all kinds of stuff that they was doing to me at the thing there. And I was there for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. I was there for a long time, going through all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly things. They was inspecting, injecting every single part of me. They was leaving no parts untouched. But I proceeded through until I finally come to see the very last man. I walked up, I said, "What do you want to see me about?" He said, "Kid, we only have one more question. Have you ever been arrested?" I told him the story of the Alice's Restaurant Massacre with 5-part harmony, full orchestration, all kinds of other phenomenon. He stopped me there. He said, "Kid, did you go to court?" I told him the story of the 27 8x10 color glossy pictures with the circles and arrows. He stopped me again. He said, "Kid, I want you to go over, sit down on that bench that says Group W. Now, kid." I went over there. Group W. Group W is where they used to put you if you might not have been moral enough to join the army after committing your special crime. There was all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly-looking people on the bench. There was mother rapers and father stabbers, father rapers. There was father raper sitting there on the bench next to me. I mean, these was mean, nasty, ugly, horrible, crime-fighting guys. And the meanest, ugliest, nastiest, the meanest father raper of them all was coming over to me. And he sat down next to me and said, "Kid, what'd you get?" I said, "I didn't get nothing. I had to pay $25 and pick up the garbage." He said, "Kid, what was you arrested for?" And I said, "Littering." They all moved away from me on the bench there. Till I said, "And creating a nuisance." And then they all come back and shook my hand. And we had a great time on the bench talking about crime, mother stabbing, father raping. We was smoking cigarettes and all kinds of stuff, having a good time. Till the sergeant come over. He had some paper in his hand. He held it up. He went like this. He said, kids, this piece of paper got 37 words for them. That's one no time to crime, detail to crime. You got to say, pretend to about the crime. The rest of the officer's name kind of thing got to say. And he talked for 45 minutes, but nobody understood a word he said. But I wrote down the masterpiece like I was supposed to. Now, I put down my pencil, turned over the piece of paper, and there on the other side of that piece of paper, in the middle of the other side, away from everything else on the other side, underlined and capitalized, read the following words. Kid, have you rehabilitated yourself? I went over to the sergeant. I said, Sergeant, you got a lot of gall to ask me if I've rehabilitated myself. I mean, I'm sitting here on the Group W bench. I'm sitting here on the Group W bench because you want to know if I'm moral enough to join the Army, burn women, kids' houses, children's villages after being a litter bug. He said, kid, we don't like your kind. We're going to send your fingerprints off to Washington. And friends somewhere in Washington, enshrined in a little folder, is a study in black and white of my fingerprints. They're still there. Of course, the only reason I'm singing you the song this afternoon is because you may know somebody in a similar situation sometime. Even some of you could be in something like that sometime sooner than you're standing out here thinking about today. And if you ever find yourself in something like that, you don't know what to do. There may be only one thing. Well, there may not be anything you can do, but there's something you can try. And that's to be wherever it is you're supposed to be. You just walk in, sit down, wait your turn. When you get a chance, you stand up, you go something like this. You say, oh, shrink, excuse me, man, but you can get anything you want at Alice's Resturaunt, and walk out. Imagine one person, even today, walking in, singing some Alice's Resturaunt, walking out. Because, hey, that guy's 30 years too late. Get that guy out of here. Or imagine two of them walking in hand, singing in harmony. I don't know what the problem is, but it seems like it'll still keep you out. So imagine three of them. They might think of some kind of organization or something. Or maybe even 50. Maybe 50 people a day going in, singing some Alice's Resturaunt, walking out. Friends they might think is a movement, and most of them be too young to know what a movement was. But that's what it was. It was the Alice's Resturaunt anti-massacre movement. That's what it was, that's what it is, and I guess that's what it's always gonna be. All you've got to do to join is to sing it with me as it comes around again on the guitar. With feeling. You can get anything you want at Alice's Resturaunt. You can get anything you want at Alice's Resturaunt. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can... No. You can't start singing louder just at the end or something. You would have thought after all this time, you would have learned by now. If you want to end war and stuff, you got to learn to sing loud all the time so people can hear you. Now, I know this is a long song. Believe me, I know. It's pretty long when it first came out 30 years ago. It was like 18 minutes on the record. I'm not sitting up here trying to make it any longer today. Even though I could. I'm still not proud. Or tired. Of course, I know there's probably people here in this crowd today that don't believe that songs can change the world or that songs can change the destiny of nations. I wouldn't have thought so either. Of course, I know something some of you may not know, and I'm reminded of it during, when everybody's running for president and stuff. It sort of awakens memories. I remember back years ago when Jimmy Carter was elected president, because I got an invitation to his inauguration, and I knew I had to go because I knew it'd be the only one I ever got. Been right so far. But I went to Washington. I'm not making this up. This is true now. I went to Washington. There's people partying all over. Everything was fine until in the evening somebody come and tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around. It was Chip Carter, the president's son. I had met him. I knew him. I said, Chip, how you doing? He said, Arlo, I've been looking everywhere for you, man. I said, Chip, how come? He said, Arlo, I've got something very important to tell you. I said, Chip, what is it? He said, Arlo, we were moving our stuff into the White House, and in the Nixon record library, we found a copy of your record, Alice's Restaurant. I looked at Chip Carter. I looked deep into the man's soul. I said, Chip, was it open? And in slow motion, he nodded, yes, it had been open. And I want you folks out here this afternoon to know that I did not think about that for years, till just a few years ago when Richard Nixon passed away, and we was all thinking about him. And maybe there's some folks here too young to know, but see, Richard Nixon was president of the United States. And he used to like to tape stuff. If you can imagine a world before VCRs and cassette decks is everywhere, you can imagine a man who was truly ahead of his time. He taped everything that went on in the White House, and everything was fine until one day they started playing back the tapes, and people found out what was going on in there. But it wasn't anything on any tape that got the president in trouble at first, so much as it was what he had erased from the tapes. But he didn't want people to know what he was listening to. And there was one particular famous gap in one of those tapes that I was thinking about one day when I said to myself, Arlo, how many things in the world are 18 minutes and 20 seconds long? Probably just a coincidence, but it's good enough for me. So when the song comes around again, remember that songs can change the destiny of nations. You just have to know the words and have the feeling, and wait for it to come around again on the guitar. Anything you want at Alice's except in Alice. You can't get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. And you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Da 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 da. At Alice's Restaurant. Thank you. Song gets longer as time goes by. I just feel an obligation to add some of these historic footnotes. Just hope nothing else happens, that's all. Song's already long enough. That was quite some time, you know, when I was growing up. It seemed like back in those days everybody was divided on everything, the whole country, you know, just like places around the world. But we did something fairly wonderful here. We got beyond that, you know. A lot of places around the world tonight, people are still fighting and killing each other, and we've worked out some of that stuff anyway. But I remember back years ago when that whole time was over, I felt, you know, there's only two kinds of people I'd ever met during that whole time. There were people that gave a damn and people that didn't. And the truth was, you could find both of those kinds of people on every side of every issue that came and went, you know. And in the long run, I found I just had more in common with people that just plain cared about stuff than I did with people who may have sided with me on an issue or two as they were going through time, which is a long-winded way of saying I made some friends I didn't expect to make, and some of them are here this afternoon. And on this weekend, I want to sing a song I wrote just a few years ago. Back when there was still a Soviet Union around, they had some of their boys over in Afghanistan at the time. Reminded me of some of my friends back here in this country. It's a song called When a Soldier Makes It Home. It goes something like this. halfway around the world tonight, in a strange and foreign land. This soldier packs his memories as he leaves Afghanistan. And back home they don't know too much, there's just no way to tell. I guess you had to be there for to know that war was hell. And there won't be any victory parades for those that's coming back. They'll fly them in at midnight and unload the body sacks. And the living will be walking down a long and lonely road, because nobody seems to care these days when a soldier makes it home. They'll say it wasn't easy, just another job well done, as the government in Kabul falls to the sounds of rebel guns. And the faces of the comrades been blown out of the sky, leaves you bitter with the feeling that they didn't have to die. And there won't be any victory parades for those that's coming back. They'll fly them in at midnight and unload the body sacks. And the living will be walking down a long and lonely road, because nobody seems to care these days when a soldier makes it home. But halfway around the world tonight, in a strange and foreign land, a soldier unpacks memories that he saved from Vietnam. And back home they didn't know too much, there was just no way to tell. I guess you had to be there for to know that war was hell. And there wasn't any big parades for those that made it back. They flew them in at midnight and unloaded all the sacks. And the living were left walking down a long and lonely road, because nobody seemed to care back then when a soldier made it home. The night is coming quickly, the stars are on their way. As I stare into the evening, looking for the words to say, I saw the lonely soldier, just a boy that's far from home. And I saw that I was just like him, while upon this earth I roam. And there may not be any big parades if I ever make it back, as I come home undercover through a world that can't keep track of the heroes who have fallen, let alone the ones who won't. Which is why nobody seems to care when a soldier makes it home. around 1971. I was playing my last songs, and I walked off the stage, packed up my guitars, and I was walking out. And a little guy stopped me. He said, "Arlo, I want to sing you a song, man." I said, "Come on, man. I don't want to hear no songs. I hate songs. I don't even like my songs. Why should I listen to your songs?" And I was just being a butthead, basically. The guy said, "Come on, Arlo, I just want to sing you one song, man." I said, "Okay, buy me a beer. I'll sit here and drink it as long as it lasts. You can do whatever you want." He says, "Okay, it sounds like a deal." I says, "It does?" Turned out to be one of the finer beers of my entire life. This guy became friends with me and a lot of other people. He wrote some great songs. He's gone now. He's left a great legacy of songs and records and friends. His name was Steve Goodman. This is his song. Riding on the city of New Orleans, Illinois Central, Monday morning rail. 15 cars and 15 restless riders, 3 conductors and 25 sacks of mail. All along the southbound Odyssey, the train pulls out at Kankakee, rolls along past houses, farms, and fields, passing trains that have no names, freight yards full of old black men, and the graveyards of the rusted automobiles. Good morning, America, how are you? Say, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. Dealing card games with the old man in the club car. Penny a point, ain't no one keeping score. Pass the paper bag that holds a bottle, and feel the wheels rumbling neath the floor. And the sons of Pullman porters and the sons of engineers ride their father's magic carpet made of steel. Mothers with their babes asleep, rocking to the gentle beat, and the rhythm of the rail is all they feel. Good morning, America, how are you? Say, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. Nighttime on the city of New Orleans. Changing cars in Memphis, Tennessee. Halfway home and we'll be there by morning. Through the Mississippi darkness, rolling down to the sea. But all the towns and people seem to fade into a bad dream. Steel rail still ain't heard the news. The conductor sings his songs again. The passengers will please refrain. This train's got the disappearing railroad blues. And good night, America, how are you? Say, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. Oh, good night, America, how are you? Say, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. If I could go back home to the place I was raised, I'd catch the next bus and be there in a few days. But I just can't do it. I was raised on the road. I got no place to go to, so I guess I'll stay on. There's dreams that I've had I wrote in songs yesterday, but the waves of the world have washed them away. Still I carry them with me wherever I go. They're my only possessions on this slow boat back home. I've kept all of my memories buried deep in my heart, where time cannot touch them and rip them apart. Still I look for the hour when I will be free from constantly dying and living on dreams. If I could go back home to the place I was raised, I'd catch the next bus and be there in a few days. My dreams in my pockets, my life has gone wrong. They're my only possessions on this slow boat back home. I remember when I started writing songs, I was just a kid in high school. And of course, in those days, a lot of people were going to school, you know. But mostly men, we were either going to school in those days or, like I said earlier, we were visiting those nations, Asian nations, all expenses paid. And so I was looking to stay in school. But unfortunately, I got out of high school in the middle of that mess, and I was looking for a college to go to. I was going to high school in Massachusetts, and the nearest college that would take me was over in Billings, Montana. Not making that up. So I went to school in Billings for a while. I was smart enough to get in, not smart enough to stay for very long, and I flunked out. Started visiting American military bases while they was trying to decide what to do with me. And I told them, I said, guys, just trust me on this. I'm not worth it. And it took them a few years, but they finally agreed. But I remember I missed being in school. I missed being around smart people. So I went back to Massachusetts, where I knew they had a lot of schools, colleges, universities, smart people everywhere. You could see them on the street and everything. So I started hanging out with them, hoping that some of their smart would rub off on me. And it was working. I felt like I was getting smarter every day, till I wrote this song. And then I knew as I found myself going through life that smart was not going to be a big-time word for me. I don't want a pickle, just want to ride on my motorcycle. See what I mean? I don't want a tickle, I'd rather ride on my motorcycle. to die. Just want to ride on the motorcycle. Can't believe I wrote this stupid song, man. Well, I didn't mean to write it. But I remember when I wrote it, I was just out of college. I was riding my bike. I was going down a mountain road. I was doing 150 miles an hour, playing my guitar. On one side of the mountain road, there was a mountain. On the other side, there was nothing, just a cliff in the air. I wasn't paying attention. I was just, going down the road. And all of a sudden, by accident, a string broke off of my guitar. Broke right there. Went flying across the road that way, wrapped itself around a yield sign. The string didn't break, the sign didn't break, the string stayed wrapped around the sign, and it stayed in the other end of my guitar. So I held on to my guitar with one hand, held on to my bike with the other, made a sharp turn off of the road. Luckily, I didn't go into the mountain, just went over the cliff. I was doing 150 miles an hour sideways and 500 feet down at the same time, looking for the cops. Because I knew it was illegal. I also knew that was it. Knew I didn't have long to live in the world. And in my last remaining seconds in the world, I knew it'd be my obligation to write one last farewell song to the world. Took out a piece of paper, pulled out a pen, sat back, thought a while, but nothing come to me. It was like writer's block or something. So I looked up in the sky for inspiration, and there in the sky, burning in flames across the clouds, was these very words. I don't want a pickle, just want to ride on my motorcycle. I don't want a tickle, I'd rather ride on my motorcycle. And I don't want to die, just want to ride on my motorcycle. Well, I hoped it wasn't going to be the most brilliant song I ever got to write, but I didn't have time to change it. Just wrote it down, learned it right away. Of course, the most amazing thing was I didn't die. Now, I remember I didn't die, because it was right after that I started playing in these little coffee houses like we used to have back then. I wasn't actually even playing in them. I was just going in them with my guitar so I could get in for free. And I'd walk in, sit down, and if somebody who was supposed to be playing didn't show up or got sick or drunk or something, they'd look at me and say like, Arlo, why don't you come on up here and sing something, till we can find somebody good. And I'd get up there, and this would be one of the few songs I knew. So I'd start singing this song, feeling stupid, embarrassed, ashamed of myself. People were looking at each other like, we paid for that song. So I started talking in the middle of the song, hoping that I could talk my way out of singing that stupid chorus again. And as time went by, the song got longer and longer, till pretty soon I could start this song on one coast, finish it 3 weeks later on the other coast. That's when I quit singing it. Time went by, years, decades. I never thought I'd sing this song again. Till a few years ago, when I found out, when I discovered that they were studying the lyrics to this song in colleges and universities around the country. No wonder we're in trouble. I don't care. I feel good now. It's okay to be stupid now. Sometimes it's even smart. So now I can sing with pride in my heart. I don't want a pickle, I just want to ride on my motorcycle. I don't want a tickle, I'd rather ride on my motorcycle. And I don't want to die, just want to ride on my motorcycle. don't have like a plan or something up here. I had one time, and I couldn't remember what the plan was, and so like years ago, like a lot of folk singer types, I used to write the plan on a piece of paper and tape it to the side of the guitar. And then when I turned 40 about a decade ago, I realized I couldn't move the guitar far enough away to read the plan. So now I just play what I remember I know, you know. Most of the time it goes along pretty good. But one time down last year, we were in New Orleans and we were playing down there, and it was going along. I remembered the songs I knew and everything. And then all of a sudden it was like blank, you know. And so while I was thinking about what else I knew, some folks in the audience took the opportunity to make some suggestions. Somebody said, Louie. And somebody said, House of the Rising Sun. I thought, I might even know that one, man. And so I did it that night, and I thought I'd just keep doing it as long as I know that I know it. Here's an old one. There's a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many poor girls, and me, oh Lord, I'm a one. Now if I would listen to what my mama said, I'd be at home today. But being so young and foolish, poor girl, let a gambler lead me astray. My mama was a tailor. She sewed those new blue jeans. My daddy was a gambling man, gambled down in New Orleans. You know the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk, and the only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drum. I got one foot on the platform, you know the other's on the train. I'm going back to spend my life beneath that ball and chain. Go and tell my baby sister not to do like I have done, and to shun that house in New Orleans. They call the rising sun. There's a house in New Orleans. They call the rising sun. It's been the ruin of many poor girls. And me, oh Lord, I'm one. This is my daughter, Sarah Lee, that just joined us. Just joined me. She was supposed to be here earlier, but she was over in New York State, decided to come here the short way, so she went up to like Montreal or something. I don't know. You want to sing something?
Yeah, sure.
Let's sing. Let's do a Pete song. Or, no, yeah. Well, let me see what time we got. Yeah, do Pete's song. Good.
Want me to start it? Want me to talk?
Hey, say something.
Too many cops on the road. That's my excuse. I was in Rhinebeck, New York last night doing a show with Pete Seeger's grandson, Tal Rodriguez, right by the Hudson River, where he's done all that work clearing up the water and stuff. And so I guess we'll sing one of Pete's river songs.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's just do it.
Sending out my golden
not far